Welcome to Creating Calm, Parenting with Mind, Body, and Spirit. I am Corinne Cayce, your co-host. I'm an integral leadership coach, a mother of two, and a lifelong student of the A.R.E Cayce readings. And I am here with my friend and co-host, Arlene.
Hi, Corinne. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Arlene DiJamco. I'm an integrative physician, a pediatrician, and a cranial osteopath. And we have another amazing episode for you today. It is on Cayce and breathing exercises. And he has specific recommendations on how to build exercises and how to use them to get the most out of them. And it's not a one size fits all. So we're looking forward to delving more into that. Corinne is going to get us started with our opening meditation.
Yes. So let's just take a few moments to center, as we always do. If you are able to close your eyes, please feel welcome to. If not, just let your attention turn inward for a moment. And as we begin this conversation on breath, we can start off with letting our attention be with our breath. And just let yourself take 3 deep cleansing breaths together in whatever way feels natural for you. And greet your breath, this friend that is always with you from the first moment that you enter into your body until you leave. This constant companion, always there, whether we're conscious of it or not. All right, thank you very much. So, we're talking about breath today, and we always begin our episodes with an excerpt from the A.R.E Cayce readings to kind of center us, but we are going to be sharing so many excerpts from the readings with you that we're not going to start off with one. We're just going to kind of dive into this discussion. And I think breath is something that is so much at the forefront in our world right now. There's James Nestor's book, Breath, and we're so aware of its powerful ability to connect us to our bodies, to help us in so many ways, so many mental health ways. I know as a mother working with my own children, and breath is something that I do on a daily way nature, and it's also a way that I take care of myself. And I know that so many of us are looking for ways to help work with anxiety, stress, discomfort, physical or mental, in all different ways. And Arlene and I have found through researching the readings on breath that it's a powerful tool available to us.
Mm-hmm. It is powerful, and it's also very natural for us to breathe. And we might find, like, when we're feeling stuck, that we tend to hold our breaths. So just starting to access our breaths again is already healing. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, not a one size fits all. And the Cayce readings are pretty clear about that. Yes. And Cayce says that not that these are not good. He was referring to specific breathing exercise. In this case, it was a Kundalini one, but it is not very good to give a child a razor, not very good to use a razor to sharpen pencils and try to shave with same. So it is in the activities of those who disregard the means to an end of bringing coordination to organs of the body. That was from reading 5162-1. And so he is so clear, as he is with many tools that we have available to us. We had talked about stones and crystals before, and he was also clear with, don't use these if you don't know how to use them, because it may do more harm than good. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that in my practice too, with people experimenting with different kinds of breath work. And in the Cayce readings as well, there were multiple people that came with questions of specific types of yogic breathing. Mm-hmm. And he said, at this moment for you, this would not necessarily be a good thing to do. And so in my practice, I've seen several people that came in after doing some fire breathing, which is specific type of yogic breathing to energize, but their bodies and their organ systems, their nervous systems, they weren't really in the state to get the most out of that kind of breathing exercise. And what's interesting is that it created an imbalance in the nervous system. So it put a bit of a shock in the body because you're trying to move something so forcefully, and there are blockages in other areas. So their bodies weren't able to integrate it in a way that was harmonious. And energetically, which is fascinating to me, it felt like they had a ring of fire around their neck, which is interesting because it didn't feel good to them. So it wasn't that their whole body was energized. It was getting stuck in a way.
Yeah. And I think whenever we're looking to relieve pain or discomfort or to improve in some way, we naturally want there to be like an easy answer, like a formula to do, like the thing to try, the prescription to follow, and that's going to make it all better. And I think part of one of the deeper pervasive lessons in the Edgar Cayce readings, and also specifically related to working with breath, is that we're opening a doorway to being able to pay attention to what it is that's happening in our own bodies, and being willing to kind of be in relationship with our bodies in a way that we're trusting our bodies to like know what feels good, to know what's wrong, to be able to look more inward rather than externally for the answers or the guidance that we may need for how to work with something. And I think related with everything in the readings, but also specifically related to breath, the readings would say to people asking questions about certain breath exercises, know why you're doing something first. Like be in touch, specifically in the language of the readings, with your ideal, or what it is that's motivating you and inspiring you to do something, and spend some real time touching in with your intention before you set out, doing exercises in a certain way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is the first step, is to be intentional, to not do this rote as part of a to-do list, another thing that you have to do for your health. He said, don't do it like that. This needs to be more intentional and and purposeful. So, and we think about like, what does inspiration mean? Breathing in. And so from the Cayce readings, I love this line because he said, let's for the moment illustrate that the entity may gather as to what inspiration really means. It is not of influences without, but the answer to something within. The real inspiration is the arousing of a consciousness of that within. That was from reading 1597-1. And that is actually the first step. So before incorporating a breathing exercise is to understand, why do you want to do that? And why are you going to take the steps to incorporate any kind of breathing exercise? And again, breathing is very natural. And as we move through the world, we have to breathe. So there's a natural component to breathing. But then if we're using exercises, then we're extracting like that potency of the breath for our use. And so to be purposeful, intentional about it, and to understand that as we do this, we are getting in touch with our own consciousness, with our own essence, with the creative forces within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And from that same reading, the person requesting the reading asked, should I attempt to practice the yogi philosophy of regular meditation, breathing, exercise, etc.? And the answer that came is, not as we find, for first, as has been given, study to show thyself approved unto that which is thy ideal. That is, pattern thy life what it requires for the deeper communion within, whether the washing of the body, the cleansing of the mind by use of odors, incense, or whatnot, or characters of music. But let thy ideal be raised, not that of any yogi, for who is yogi? So just really bringing it back to yourself of touch in with what's inspiring you and motivating you. And that's kind of as we move into like when the readings are encouraging us to work with our breath, that's a wonderful way to start our day in the morning, right? Just to touch in with, oh, here I'm going to do this stretching and this breathing now. Like, why am I doing it? Like, what is just kind of attuning and orienting to your whole self.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, so that's the first step.
Yes.
And then as you're continuing on, then he recommends to be consistent in your breathing exercises. It doesn't mean that you have to do them forever, like the same ones forever. It means, do them consistently for a period of time. That period of time will depend on you, what you need out of it. And so there were certain morning and evening exercises that he described. So we're going to discuss some generalities about that, and then we're going to get into some specifics. Mm-hmm. So the purpose of the morning exercises is to energize, to do that in open air with loose clothing, because you're filling your lungs with air, with that inspiration, getting ready for the day. And Corinne, will you read that morning exercise?
Yes. So this comes from reading 989-1, and it says, such an exercise would be that described as the stretching of the arms, the lower limbs, with the intake and the sudden exhale from the lungs themselves. That not only purifies the activity of the source of energizing, or the energies for the blood supply, but alleviates those tendencies for the pressures that are indicated in the cervical areas.
Yeah, so you're literally just inhaling and raising your arms above your head, and then exhaling through the mouth, and then letting those arms down. And you could do this 3 times, 5 times, 6 times. But to start the day like that, to enliven your body, to wake up your body. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to the evening exercise, which is interesting because these exercises, they help to integrate the nervous system, coordinate the organs as well. Because one of the questions for this exercise that we're going to describe was, would breathing exercises help balance my metabolism? That's from 1158-31. And I just want to give you that teaser of why we're doing these exercises, because they help to wake up the body, they help to integrate. And then in the evening, the purpose is to exhale from the day. So that in morning, it's like we're inhaling more, and then in the evening, we're exhaling more.
Mm-hmm. Yep, to try to kind of clear out the lungs and move into like that stabilizing, restful, balancing place. So from reading 1158-31, it says, evenings before retiring, the inhalations would be to empty the lungs. These exercises would be more of the bending nature. So when the body is tired is the time to use the bending, while when ready to be enlivened of the morning, open the whole lungs and body to fresh air. The bending exercises would be standing erect and bending forward, then the stooping and bending forward C, emptying the body. So let's unpack that a bit, Arlene. What are you hearing in there?
Well, so it's bending to like be able to help the lungs like exhale all the air. So if there's any air that needs to move that hasn't moved from the day, you're completely exhaling as much as you can. So if you inhale as you're bending forward, and then in this case, stooping, I'm interpreting as you're kind of squatting more. So you're actually bending the body even more, helping to push the air out of the lungs as you exhale. So you would basically be doing this in a forward bend, inhaling and exhaling as you're squatting even more. And there's variations to this as well, because in another exercise, evening exercise, he describes it more laying on your back with the soles of your feet against the wall. And then you're doing this modified bridge pose where your feet are against the wall, you're on your back, and then you raise your torso up, and you can do this in like circular motions, and that's another generalization that we saw from the readings, that often that the coordination of the breath with the movement was with the body moving in circular exercises. So it could be like rotating the torso and hips in one direction, and clockwise and then counterclockwise while breathing. And that's squatting or a forward bend, or it's an alternative to that is that the feet against the wall. All of these would be good ways to get ready for the evening to prepare you for sleep.
Yeah. So to walk back through where we've gone so far, in the generalizations that we can find through the different readings that were offered for people inquiring about breath work, there is like the initial step of knowing your intention, setting your intention, connecting with your ideal. And then there is the encouragement to focus on your breathing in relationship to stretches and movements of your body, both in the morning and in the evening. In the morning, focusing more on enlivening, opening the lungs, breathing in fresh air. I know when I was a little girl, my dad would have us facing the rising sun, facing ideally like in a pine thicket, which was related to readings connected to mental health for young people and teenagers, hearing the sound of the wind through the pine trees, having your bare feet on the earth. And that's kind of, in an ideal world. Now in my own home, I kind of face east more, where I can see the sun rising. And then in the evening, it's the same thing, the coordination of the body. So you're moving the body a little bit as you coordinate with breathing, with the breath. And it's more of an exhaling out, a cleansing out, and bending over can kind of help with that expulsion of the air and preparing the body to go to sleep.
I love that. With the rising sun, we're breathing in that light, and then with the sunset, we're exhaling.
Yeah. And so then so those are sort of general daily things. And if we were going to kind of focus in more on specific types of breathing exercises recommended in the readings for specific activities or specific conditions that may be going on with the body, you want to deepen in. I know there's alternate nostril breathing is a really common one recommended. I mean, that a lot of folks who are students of the readings are aware of, and now more and more science sort of coming out to help us understand the benefits of alternate breathing. But let's shift gears and talk about that, shall we, Arlene?
Yes. Yeah. Cayce says so much about alternate nostril breathing. And the way he describes it might be different than if you've done it in yoga class before.
Right.
And in general, that right nostril, breathing in through the right nostril, is more energizing. It represents the sympathetic, so it's has more of a charge to it, more strengthening. And then inhaling through the left nostril is more parasympathetic activity, and it's the Cayce readings say that it's more spiritual and easing, so that relaxation. And then we need a balance of both those arms of the autonomic nervous system to feel good, to feel harmonized and integrated. And for me, just that a fascinating point about alternate nostril breathing is that it's a kind of cross-lateral exercise, which means that it helps integrate right and left hemispheres, which we need for any kind of processing, for cognitive processing to be able to learn and understand, for emotional processing, for coordination. And so this kind of breathing exercise is good for so many different things. And he recommended it often for people. But he did say, if you're not used to various breathing exercises, to move the body first.
Yeah.
More simple exercises. And then as you get used to it through the weeks or months or days or whatever it takes for you, then to start coordinating the alternate nostril breathing.
Right. So this is like a little bit deeper once you're familiar with your breath and using gentle breath work, like the morning and evening exercises like we talked about. This is like a little bit more of a deeper way of working with breath. But I'd love to read this excerpt from 283-1, and then we can talk about it a bit more. So the question is, outline breathing exercises best for purifying the body. And the answer that comes is 3 to 5 minutes of morning and evening before an open window, of course, that of rising on the toes with the hands gradually raised above the head at the same time, breathing in deeply. The better way is to breathe first through one nostril, then the other. But this is not easily done at the beginning. This is the best exercise that may be taken by most anybody. For this is not only an exercise of the respiratory system, but of all the muscular forces. Watch a cat or a tiger as it stretches. That is the exercise for the muscular forces. If there is the attempt to vary the breathing from the right to left nostril, keep same balanced. The left nostril is the spiritual or the easing. The right nostril is the strength. So keep them balanced. Don't get too much strength. That is, don't get more physical strength than you are able to keep balanced through the system. 2 or 3 times through each nostril is the better way for the expansion of the lungs and for the purifying of circulation by same. Breathe in through the nostril, out through the mouth when taking such exercise.
I love this exercise, and it's so fun, especially after we've been practicing and playing with it with the details from the Cayce readings. So some really cool elements there. He said, this is not easily done in the beginning. So it hadn't occurred to me that I can just use my intention or consciousness to breathe through one nostril or the other. And it's natural for us to have alternate nostril breathing. And that's when we're in a state of balance. But in the beginning, we need some help to hold one nostril down than the other. And so when he says, watch like a cat or a tiger, when we kind of sifted through all the details, we started to understand that meant like holding one nostril down and then stretching. So we're breathing through the right nostril first, and then stretching with that right arm out overhead, whatever feels good to you. And you'll do this with, this could be first thing in the morning, but it could also be done at night, or, 2 to 3 times a day it could be done. And really depends on what you need out of it. It could just be done several times a week. But you would, as you inhale, you would breathe through one side. So it's say right nostril first with the right arm overhead, and you would stand on your toes. And then you could even like breathe into any other areas of tension on that right side, just micro adjustments as you breathe as much as you can in. And then as you exhale, it would be through the mouth. And then you can drop that arm down, or as you get used to it, you can make what he calls a circular motion with those hips and that arm like circling around. And it might sound confusing at first, but as Corinne and I were trying these out, it actually feels really natural. It's however your body would like to move. So there's not an absolute way to do it. It's you incorporate those little details as it feels good to you. So he says, do a few times through one side, then exhale through the mouth. So breathe in through the nose, exhale through the mouth, breathe in through the right nostril, out through the mouth. Do that 2 to 3 times, and then switch to the left side. Then you would stretch like a cat, that left side of the body, hold the right nostril down, breathing in as you stretch, and then up on your toes, and then making micro adjustments, breathing in more as you can to open up any areas of tension, and then exhale through the mouth. This feels so good to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's really, I mean, I can hear so much of similarities between pranayama, which is the yogic breathing, which is so much a part of yoga, where you're kind of, and what it's saying here of like, it's not only respiratory, it's also muscular, of like combining the breath with the movements of the muscles in small little ways that kind of help with that finding that balance and that attuning and aligning there, and kind of trusting yourself to know. And just in your mind, when it's saying, watch a tiger or a cat, I mean, or you can just imagine in your mind too, when you've seen cats move, and feel that in your body and let yourself kind of move to reflect it. And I know cat cow is a yogic position that happens, and it's not encouraging us to get on hands and fours and do that, but more kind of that stretching up with the arm raised or the arms raised, and then curling over and down and letting your muscles sync up with your breath in that way. All right, so let's talk about some other more specific for when breath was connected to relieving physical symptoms that were going on, and also deepening into meditation as our final two areas to touch on related to breath. Okay, Arlene?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. So here was a specific one called bellows breathing, related to working with relieving congestion in people. And so from 288-40, this is a reading given for Gladys Davis, who was the stenographer of Edgar Cayce. So she received a bunch of readings and worked with everything so closely. And this reading said for her, the breathing exercises for this should be stooping, taking in the breath as the body goes down, see, exhaling, raising the arms, of course, as if flying, exhaling as the body rises again, see. This changes the circulation entirely. There may be set a mode of circulation through the breathing exercises for almost any type of condition, see, but for throat, don't rush the blood to it when it's already poisoned and poisoning the rest of the system. Take it away from it. Okay, Arlene, tell us what's being said here.
This is such an interesting exercise. And for myself, I just gave it the name of bellows breathing, because that's what it feels like to me when I do it. It feels like you're moving the whole body and moving that lymph in the body like a bellows. And so this one was specifically for a throat congestion. So if there's congestion elsewhere in the body, there are other specific exercises. But with this, you're doing a forward bend with, you can also bend your knees with that, and you're inhaling as you go down. And then as you stand up, you're exhaling and also raising the arms up. So as you do that, that will help to open up this thoracic outlet. So letting the neck drain into the thoracic area and to help relieve any congestion there. So it's really neat to see these things in the Cayce readings, and then to be able to feel them and to be able to understand them osteopathically and physiologically too, as to how they might be helping. So since you're inhaling as you're stooping or doing a forward bend, it could be with or without the knees bent. Then you're what he says is, don't rush the blood to this area. This pharynx and congestion in the throat when it's already has too much there. You want to focus on the drainage of it. And so then you're getting that drainage as you stand up and you're exhaling and you're opening up your arms to help open up that area as well. Yeah. It's so interesting. And we could think of like so many variations on these exercises to relieve different areas, because he had a completely different one for relieving swelling in the legs.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
And it is so fascinating. And what it's saying here is the circulation can be changed entirely. So rather than the blood moving like outward from the throat toward and poisoning what he's, spreading the poison of the congestion that's there in the throat, like changing the movement of the blood so that it's clearing out, it's not spreading the poison around. And that is, I don't know, that changing of the way that the circulation is moving through the body through working with our breath and movement together in order to help alleviate congestion, infection is kind of a really powerful idea. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I find it so empowering because it's a relatively simple exercise, but if you need it, it can really help you. And so just implementing these things as they're needed, but he really encourages people to use what he calls common sense. And sometimes I laugh because I'm like, wait, do we have that? Like, what is his definition of common sense, and how do we use it? So he's like, well, totally. Just use your common sense and do what's needed. And we're like, but that's why we're asking you. But he does encourage like developing that knowing conversation with your body, with that inspiration that comes from within, so that you can access what is needed for you at any given moment, because these are experientials that vary depending on your state of being. So what's called for depends on your state of being. Like, what are you going through at that moment? That's so one kind of breath could be helpful, and another kind of breath could actually be harmful. And Cayce says that in the readings, which is, I mean, when he says, like what we were talking about in the beginning, that you don't give a razor blade to a child who doesn't know how to use it yet. I'm like, I mean, we have to pause and like listen and wait. You mean breathing exercises are that powerful?
Totally. Yeah.
Amazing.
And it seems like it's saying yes.
Yes,
they are. Yeah. And so often, what we're going to talk about here as our last kind of breath exercise, often, even in my own experience with the readings, people are going straight to this one. Like, these are the most ones that I've heard the most frequently of working with the A.R.E and certain patterns of alternate breathing. And I think what we're really introducing here is there's a lot of other earlier stages of breath work that can be used in a much more daily way, both in working with whatever conditions you're feeling in your body, and also just to help orient and ground yourself. And that they're really powerful in and of themselves, and that we want to be aware of what a powerful tool our breath work is, and that we don't want to like pound through door, what you'd want, that analogy of using a razor, like we don't want to be too rough with ourselves and sort of blast through things that really may need care and small little steps to build up to. So with that, this breath work, this breathing exercise is more for deepening to be used to enter into a deeper state of meditation, or when you're ready to kind of move into a deepening meditation and kind of harmonizing of your body and your mind with the creative forces, and that that kind of deeper quiet that you really have time and space around. So not to be done sort of on the fly as you're headed out the door, beginning a busy day, but when you have some more quiet time to be with yourself. And this comes from reading 281.13, and the 281 series was given for the Glad Helpers group, for the people who are working with healing prayer and helping to pray for other people and create healing within their own bodies and for other people. And this says, cleanse the body with pure water. Sit or lie in an easy position without binding garments about the body. Breathe in through the right nostril 3 times and exhale through the mouth. Breathe in through the left nostril and exhale through the right 3 times. Then, either with the aid of a low music or the incantation of that which carries self deeper, deeper to the seeing, feeling, experiencing of that image of the creative forces of love, enter into the Holy of Holies. As self feels or experiences the raising of this, see it disseminated through the inner eye, not the carnal eye, to that which will bring the greater understanding in meeting every condition in the experience of the body. Then listen to the music that is made as each center of thine own body responds to that new creative force that little by little this entering in will enable self to renew all that is necessary in him. Just such a beautiful explanation of entering into a deeper meditation and using specific alternating breath exercises to help you do that in a safe way.
That's beautiful. And we can see how the breathing exercises are starting to get deeper and deeper. And then in this way, using music and using mantras or incantations and visualizations to feel whatever that ideal is and the creative forces in your third eye area, and then letting that inform the rest of your body, all the organs.
And I loved how it said, and then listening to the music that arises out of your organs and centers coming into attunement with each other, that's like a sensory experience that you can feel and hear even as you move toward it. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, you're a musical instrument, and it's tuning that musical instrument to the creative forces, and so that you can have a more pure expression of that beautiful music emanating from you.
Yeah. And then finally, let's work with one of the incantations that was recommended in the readings, probably really pretty frequently in terms of sounds to work with. And that's the A.R.E. Om, which is I want to talk a little bit about because we found some interesting things in there related to that. But so this excerpt says, "But as we find it can be accomplished much more satisfactorily within self by the right character of meditation and breathing exercise, which would be those with the body seated in what is ordinarily termed as Chinese or Japanese fashion, and with the chant that has been a portion of the body of the A.R.E. Om, in the deep breathing and the circular motions of the body, and the carrying of the directing of the spiritual influences and the mental activity to the glandular forces of the body, raising these within self and directing them to that to be accomplished would be the manner." So, yeah.
Well, here again, we see that the circular motions of the body. And, sometimes when you might feel yourself wanting to do that when you're just sitting quietly, breathing, doing some kind of meditation, but it doesn't always occur to us that we can incorporate the movement into these chants, incantations, and that can help carry the vibrations through the body, help them move through the body.
Yeah, and that excerpt was from reading 275-45. And so that, that the Om sound is probably one of the most universal, chants that's been offered through so many spiritual traditions. It's, known as like the sound of the universe, or this deep attuning sound. And the our kind of addition for the Edgar Cayce readings has always been a little bit unique or different about it. And as we were reading these readings, we noticed in one of the reports from Gladys Davis, she wrote, in regards to the chant, so that's the A.R.E. Om chant, "I repeated the chant as it sounded in the reading to musician Kenneth Newburn visiting the A.R.E. headquarters." So this musician visited the A.R.E. and Gladys made the sound that she heard come through in the reading that Edgar Cayce was giving in his hypnotic trance state. She made it for this musician, and he said he encouraged her to add this explanatory note. Number 1, spelling A.R. represents the sound ah, as in father, the first syllable of fa, father. And number 2, the repeated R's mean only continued sound, not new glottal beginnings. So Arlene and I pondered this a fair bit and wondered if indeed the R, that we don't want to include a hard R sound in that incantation of the ariom, and that it's more just an emphasis on the ah, like the father, first syllable there. Yeah.
Which would make sense because we're focusing on the vowel sounds,
right,
rather than the consonant sounds. So being more that ow, but he still has the E, which not everyone says when they do an owming.
Right.
We still have the ow-yom.
Yeah.
So
we have that E sound in there, but not as hard an R sound necessarily. So if we wanted to bring in working with a specific sound that's often recommended in the A.R.E Cayce readings as we're deepening our breath work, that ariom is one that's recommended in the readings. And I hope I did that. I hope I did that justice, but that could be an incantation that we return to in that deeper meditative state.
And here he talks about the glands and coordination and then up to the third eye. So that ow-yom sound, those vibrations do travel up the middle of the body. And we're talking about this at the end, but it's because we don't necessarily need to start from this point. First, it just, what he says, use your common sense and start with where you can. And if there's a lot of tension in the body, he sometimes recommended massage or osteopathic treatment or something to loosen up tensions in the body before integrating some of these more specific breathing exercises.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready, you can really get so much out of it. And that ariom is amazing for integrating the nervous system and opening up various areas of the body.
Yeah. So hopefully there's something in all that we've put in to this episode today around breathwork that's applicable for you and your family, your loved ones who are around you, and specifically thinking around working with just centering and awakening each day. If you have specific physical things that are going on with your body, I know we have so many allergies this time of year and bits of congestion, and thinking about working with our breath related to clearing that out, certainly working with anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and using breath to do that to help manage and relieve that. And what Arlene was mentioning around the balancing of the right and left side, those exercises that help us process and integrate and feel centered, thinking about the nostril breathing related to that as well.
These are beautiful exercises, and we encourage you to start from the beginning and see what you can do with it.
And listen to your body. Yep. So thank you so much, Arlene. It's such a pleasure, as always, to dive deep into these different aspects of the readings and make sense of them together, and then offer them in a way that we feel like will be able to resonate with people. So hopefully it has with you. We always love to hear your questions or your comments on anything that we've talked about. You can reach us at creatingcalm@edgarcayce.org anytime. And thank you so much, Arlene. I can't wait for our next conversation.
Thank you, Corinne. I love delving into these readings with you. And thank you, everyone, for being here with us, too.